am going to give you immortality.
No, please. Oh, please. I've done nothing to hurt you.
I have no desire to hurt you. You will always be beautiful. Think, my child. In 1,000 years, you will be as lovely as you are now. Come.
No.
Come.
Let me go. Let me go. Let me...
Hello everyone, I am Sean and welcome once again to my Horror Corner. As always, thank you so much for watching the video today. I really do appreciate you taking time to watch my stuff. So thank you. And to those of you who have been subscribing to the channel, a special thank you to you. It really does mean so much to me to have your support. And I'm, honestly a little bit shocked at how much the numbers are starting to go up. So thank you all so very, very much. I really do appreciate that. Today, we have got an interesting one to talk about. This was a first-time watch for me on this movie. Today, we are going to be talking about Mystery of the Wax Museum from 1933. I didn't even know this movie existed until probably the last couple of years. I was familiar with the 1953 movie starring Vincent Price, House of Wax, and then, of course, the 2005 House of Wax. But I did not know this movie was a thing until I think I was just... I'm a big fan of the 2005 House of Wax. I really like that 1953 movie, and I guess I was just looking at some stuff on those movies and found out about this one, that they were both basically remakes of this. And so I'm like, wow, I'm going to have to check this out at some point then, because the older I get, I kind of have this, I don't know, special place in my heart for old movies. I really find myself liking some of this stuff more than I would have years ago. So I've always kind of wanted to watch this and just never quite got around to it until recently. And so getting ready to, as I was coming up with some movies for episodes, this one popped up and I'm like, yeah, let's do that. So I bought it on Blu-ray. I don't believe that the time of this recording it's streaming anywhere. I did look the other day and didn't see it anywhere, so I was glad I had it. But yeah, bought it on Blu-ray, just watched it today, actually just finished it a few minutes ago. And I was kind of, to say this before I really get started, I was so unsure because, like I just said, I really have a tendency to, there's something about these old movies like this that I really enjoy. And so there was part of me that was like, I'm really going to like this. I know I am. But then again, at the same time, I was a little concerned. I was hoping that I was going to be able to kind of separate. I love Vincent Price, right? He's such an icon, and I really enjoy that 1953 film, House of Wax. And having seen it before, seeing this one, obviously, I was like, I hope that I can watch this without comparing it so much to House of Wax from 1953, because I just couldn't imagine anybody in this film being able to live up to and compare to Vincent Price. So while part of me was really excited and kind of going into it thinking I'm really going to enjoy this, part of me was a little bit concerned. And so just watched it today, like I said, a first-time watch, and we're going to, just get right into it here a little bit because there's some interesting things about this film. So first, House of Wax 1933. Let me give you the overview according to Rotten Tomatoes. Ivan Igor is the sculptor at a famous wax museum in London. When his partner, Joe Worth, burns down the museum for the insurance money, Igor is trapped inside. Years later, he reemerges in New York as the curator of a new wax museum, which boasts incredibly lifelike statues. When model Joan Gale goes missing, reporter Florence Dempsey follows the clues to Igor's museum, where she discovers a terrible secret. I will say, and I almost said it backwards even just now. So the 1953 film with Vincent Price, if you've seen it, it is very much a remake of this. Very, very similar in the plot and the story and the way it all unfolds. Very similar. Not exact, but very similar. Whereas the 2005 movie is kind of its own thing. It just has a House of Wax, right? So I could kind of tell when I got ready to watch this, and I read just a little bit about it. Read the the synopsis and this overview. I knew it was going to be very similar. So let's get into some facts about the movie, and then we'll kind of get into my opinion of this. So the film was released February 18th of 1933, directed by Michael Curtiz, or Kurtz, I'm not sure how you say that. Screenplay by Don Mullally and Carl Erickson. Based on The Waxworks, a 1932 short story by Charles S. Belden. Produced by Henry Blanc and Hal B. Wallace. Cinematography by Ray Renahan. Edited by George Amy. Music by Cliff Hess. Production company was Warner Brothers. 77-minute runtime. A budget of $279,000, $1.1 million at the box office, so did very well. 92% from critics and a 63% from the audience, so good scores. And IMDb score of a 6.8 out of 10. Normally here I would give you the the overall critics consensus that Rotten Tomatoes has. There's not one for this film, so we'll just go ahead and get into the cast. We have Lionel Atwill as Yvonne Igor, Fay Ray as Charlotte Duncan, Glenda Farrell as Florence Dempsey, Frank McHugh as Jim, Alan Vincent as Ralph Burton, Gavin Gordon as George Winton, Edwin Maxwell as Joe Worth, Matthew Betts as Hugo, and Monica Bannister as Joan Gale. Very little behind the scenes stuff for this or production notes worth mentioning. I will say that this was the last Warner film to use the famous two-color system called Technicolor. The film actually performed much better in Europe than it did in the United States. And then, as I said, we had remakes, the 1953 House of Wax and the 2005 House of Wax. That's really all I've got as far as anything behind the scenes. Now, normally at this point, I would take a minute to talk about the cast and the characters and what I thought about performances. I'm going to hold on to that and talk about that as we go through the plot, because that's a big part of this film. And so I'm going to kind of reveal to you my thoughts on that as we go through this. So yeah, let's kind of get into the plot a little bit. And as I always do, I broke this down into, I was trying to see exactly how many sections I had here. I broke this down into 7 sections, just to kind of touch on a few points here and there. But let's go ahead and get started. So the film opens up 1921 London. We have this Yvonne Igor, who is this sculptor doing these historic wax figures. And this wax museum that he operates, we learned, is in financial trouble. He does end up giving a private tour to a friend of his and an art critic. This friend brings this art critic around to try to help him get some promotion and some business out of this. And the art critic is very impressed with Yvonne's work and does promise that when he gets back from a trip he's about to take, that he's going to help him get some publicity out of his work. But as soon as they leave, Yvonne's partner, Joe, comes in. And Joe is furious because of the financial trouble that the museum is in. He wants Yvonne to do more horror type characters, Jack the Ripper, that kind of thing, whereas Yvonne is more on these historic figures like Joan of Arc, Marie Antoinette, that kind of thing. And so Joe basically has the idea that he wants to burn the museum down. They can get the insurance money and get free from all of this. Yvonne obviously doesn't like the idea. They get into a fight. During the fight, Joe is able to go ahead and set things on fire, and so the figures are burning down around them while they are, having their battle. And Yvonne ends up getting knocked out for the most part there, and Joe leaves. But we do see Yvonne stir around and just kind of standing there watching these figures melt. My thoughts on the opening of this film was this is not a bad opening. For 1933, I feel like everything looks really well. Looks really good. I like the look of the film. The performances at this point seem fine. I think Edwin Maxwell as Joe and Lionel Atwill as Yvonne both do a good job here. I'm thinking as we have this first scene that this looks good. Performances are fine. Does remind me so very, very much of the 1953 film, but I'm in. I'm enjoying it so far. However, from there, I feel like we start to go downhill. The film then goes to 12 years later. It's New Year's Eve in New York, and we very quickly see that Yvonne is there now. We also discover that Joe is there now. And we hear that this model, Joan, already forgot her last name, Joan Gale, has committed suicide, is the belief. And, there's stories about that going on. We also see a scene of a morgue where some monstrous looking creature is stealing bodies out of a morgue. There's a scene here that doesn't make a lot of sense to me if you've seen this film, where it almost looks like you're seeing two shadows, like someone is watching what this monstrous looking guy is doing, but then nothing ever comes of that. I don't know what that was all about. And then we end up getting to meet this reporter, Florence, who is really needing a big story. She's arguing with her boss. He's threatening to fire her if she doesn't come up with something because she hasn't had a big story in quite some time. She learns about this model suicide. She attempts to go to the autopsy to find out exactly what happened. But once there, she hears and discovers, along with the doctors and everything, that the body is missing. And then they also discovered that her boyfriend, this wealthy playboy, George Winton, is being held in connection with Joan's death. So she goes to visit him, and he's proclaiming his innocence, and she's kind of believing him here. What I mean by I feel like the film is starting to go downhill at this point is because those I mentioned in that opening that I felt like both the performances were pretty good. I mean, it's nothing amazing, but both the performances were sufficient. They were real fine. It is rough from that point on, in my opinion, just to be completely honest with you. I really don't like to say bad things about, actors or actresses, but in my opinion, I'm looking for her name, Glenda Farrell, who portrays Florence. This is one of the worst performances I have ever seen in a movie. It's absolutely terrible in my opinion. It's horrible. It's so bad that it really is immediately taking me out of the film. I also feel like things, even as far as the looks of the film, are really starting to drop. There's a scene with a little bit of a scuffle between Joe and one of the guys that works for him, and Joe knocks him down and pushes him into a wall. You see the wall move. I mean, it looks like it's a stone wall, but you actually see it move when the guy hits it. I mean, the looks are going downhill. None of the performances at this point are good, especially the performance, as I mentioned, this Florence character. And after this part of the movie, I'm like, wow, we're taking a turn here. But, I'm sticking with it. From there, we discover that Ivan has opened this new museum, but he is now in a wheelchair, and he's, very badly burned, and he needs assistance with these sculptures, and so he has people that help him. Florence's roommate, Charlotte, is dating someone who works for Ivan, and they end up going to this museum, and Florence begins to notice a resemblance between the Joan of Arc figure and the missing supermodel Joan Gale. At the same time, Igor becomes very impressed with, Ivan becomes very impressed with Charlotte and asks her to model for him because he thinks that she looks just like his Marie Antoinette. Florence ends up going back, and basically she's got this whole thing figured out already. She realizes that these are real people. She believes that Ivan is killing these people and making them look like wax figures. Somehow, just from seeing this one figure that she thought looked a little bit like this missing model, she has figured out the entire plot of this movie already. And again, I feel like the performances are continuing to go downhill. I'm not impressed with anyone's performance at this point. She has figured this out way too fast. Just from a simple look, I mean, it's just the story is now suffering. The look of the film is suffering. The performances are bad, and even the makeup that we have for this monstrous looking character doesn't look great, in my opinion. Again, I'm trying to hang in there and be like, well, this is 1933. I realize things didn't look as good back then as they do now, but I was really struggling with everything at this point in this film. From there, Florence and George Winston begin to follow this other guy that works for Ivan. They get into this big building that's owned by Joe Worth, and Florence sees this monstrous looking creature. George is outside getting the cops, and Florence sees this monstrous looking creature pushing this crate. She ends up getting away and going and telling George and the cops that she now knows who she's found Joan, that, this is the body's in there in this crate, and she convinces the police to go in there. They also end up, this Darcy guy that they followed, the police end up arresting him as he's coming out of the building, and they get in and they look in this crate, and it turns out that it's just full of alcohol. And so it seems like Joan has struck out on her mission. All I'll really say here is the performances continue to be very, very bad, in my opinion, at this point in the film. So much so that it is really taking me out of it. And even though this film only has a 77-minute runtime, I'm now feeling like this movie is very long. Just to be completely honest with you, I'm like, okay, can we please start to wrap this up? Um, from there, the police are questioning this Darcy guy. They end up finding a watch on him, but that belongs to a missing judge, which again triggers Florence into just feeling like she again already knows everything that's going on. Um, Charlotte, in the meantime, goes to back to the museum. She wants to go and visit Ralph. Um, Ralph isn't there at the time. Yvonne begins to talk to her. He tells her that Ralph is down in the lab, but when she gets there, Ralph is not there. And then Yvonne reveals to her that he is actually not bound to this wheelchair, that he can walk. And as he begins to talk to her about basically making her immortal by making her a wax figure, she's freaking out. She's screaming. She hits him a few times. The fight scenes in this movie look so bad. Other than that first one, the initial scuffle doesn't look bad between Joe and Yvonne. From that point on, there's a few things that happen here and there, and they just look horrible. They look so fake. When she does this, when she hits him, this mask of his regular face breaks, and she discovers that he is this disabled creature or monstrous looking creature, whatever you want to call it, that has been doing all of this. The meantime, Darcy informs the cops that Yvonne is murdering people and covering them in wax to make his wax figures. Ralph arrives. He lets Florence in. They hear Charlotte screaming and take off down there. Ralph and Yvonne end up getting into a fight while Florence takes off to go get the police and George to get more help. Yvonne ends up knocking Ralph out briefly and starts setting Charlotte up to be covered in wax. But then George and the cops come in. One of the cops ends up shooting Yvonne, and he falls into the hot wax. And then Ralph comes to and saves Charlotte. And then from there, we cut to one final scene where Florence now has this huge story. It's this massive hit, and she goes to kind of gloat to her boss. Now, along the way, one thing I did leave out is along the way, we see where this George guy is starting to fall for Florence. He even tells her at one point that he loves her and asks her to marry him. And, there's just kind of some flirtiness going on between them. Florence, who has done nothing but argue with her boss throughout the entire film, now goes in and is trying to gloat to him, and he ends up asking her to marry him. She looks outside and sees George down by the car, and then she turns around and agrees to marry her boss, gives him a big kiss, and the film ends, which leaves me, again, wondering what the hell just happened. How did we go from that relationship to the boss to where now he, I guess because she's excess, he wants to marry her? We never, though, had any hint of a romantic relationship between them. And why would she accept? I mean, the ending makes zero sense to me whatsoever. And so that is, this is kind of short in me summing this up, but that is Mystery of the Wax Museum from 1933. I don't know how critic scores are so high. I don't know how audience scores are so high, because in my opinion, this is not a good film whatsoever. The story's good, but done so much better in the 1953 film. The performances aren't good. Other than a few things here and there. I mean, the wax figures look good. The opening scene looks good. But from that point on, I don't think the film looks very good. Again, the acting's not good. There's just not really much after the first 10 to 15 minutes of the movie that I like. And I was very, very disappointed with this one, to be completely honest with you. So if you're a fan of the 1953 House of Wax, and you're a fan of the 2005 House of Wax, just stick with those two, in my opinion. I for the most part, I believe, everybody's got different tastes. I get that kind of, get that. And so, even if I don't like a movie, I get that other people completely do. And that's perfectly fine. We can like different things, but I struggle to see how anyone does like this one. And so when I get ready to rate this film, Mystery of the Wax Museum from 1933, I could not wait for the movie to be over. It felt like 2 hours instead of 77 minutes. Again, not much about it that I like at all, other than the story. For me, 2 out of 10. I'm giving it a 2 just because the story was good and because it started off strong and just went downhill from there. 2 out of 10 on Mystery of the Wax Museum from 1933. That's all I've got on this one. If you've seen this movie, I'm curious as to know what you think. Do you like it? Am I completely missing something? Am I the one that's off here? Or do you have the same issues with it that I do? I want to know your opinion of Mystery of the Wax Museum of 1930 from 1933. So let me know what you think. Hit the like button on the video today if you don't mind. Leave me some comments. I love the interaction with people. If you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, please do so. I post videos every Monday and every Thursday, and then occasionally a bonus video on Saturdays. I've had one live stream so far. I do plan on having another one within the next month or two. So yeah, subscribe to the channel. I also, I always post links on my social media. So follow me on social media. I'm on Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, X, even have a Letterboxd account, and you can find me just by looking for Sean's Horror Corner everywhere other than X, and there it's just my Horror Corner. So yeah, find me on social media. When you see me post the links, please share those and help me to continue to promote the channel and get it out there. Again, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. And yeah, that's it for Mystery of the Wax Museum. Yeah, I think this is the lowest rating I've given a film since I changed my rating scale to a 1 to 10. Let me look just real quick here because I've got a lot of episodes planned for the future, so I want to be able to tell you what is coming next. Yeah, I will be back in a few days. I hope to have my friend Aaron from A&B Horror Movies on with me, and he and I will be talking about Stephen King's It from 1990, that original TV miniseries. He and I are going to talk about that, so that should be a lot of fun, a good episode to talk about Pennywise, talk about it, and it's always great having Aaron on. So yeah, until then, again, subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you soon.